My name is Kofi Gbolonyo. I'm a Ghanaian Ebe, and then a professor of ethnomusicology and African studies at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada. Within communication, we may have, talking about from indigenous African perspective, we may have 3 levels of communication. We will have a signal mode, we will have a dance, musical mode, and then we will have talking mode.
Let's talk about the talking mode.
The talking mode, okay. So the talking mode is where specific instruments, particularly single instruments, are used to transmit specific messages, communicate specifically about events, about a phenomenon. So, for example, this hourglass-shaped drum, which is put under the armpit with the use of the strings as a way to change pitch, is very common, at least in West Africa, many different ethnic groups. But this instrument has different names in West Africa. In all of these ethnic groups that this kind of drum is used, the drum, in addition to playing in musical mode and signal mode, it's basically used as a talking instrument to send specific messages. So example, again from my country, Ghana, the Dagomba have the talking drum, which they call the lunga. But generally in Ghana, that lunga is referred to as dondo. The same instrument among the Yoruba comes either in a bigger size or even a smaller size. And it also has its Yoruba names and the context in which it's used. Now, this particular hourglass-shaped instrument is the most popular talking drum outside of Africa, which actually, when you mention the word talking drum, many people outside, many non-Africans think of this hourglass-shaped instrument as the talking drum. But the fact is that almost every single African instrument can, to some extent, talk. That is, transmit message or communicate by use of sound from the instrument. So we're talking of different kinds of drum. So the terminology talking drum, when we think of ethnic groups in Ghana, for example, and Togo and Benin, for example, the Ebes, the Ashantis, or the Akans in general, have a different kind of talking drum, which comes as a pair drum, 2 drums with 2 pitches, which in Akan it's called atumpan, in Ebe it's atumpani, which is a borrowed term. And so on and so forth. So when you compare these 2 drums played together with just 2 pitches as talking drum with the hourglass-shaped drum of the Yoruba or the Dagomba of northern Ghana as talking drum, you're actually talking about 2 different, 2-shaped sounding instruments or instrumental sets that are performing basically the same role as communicating. Now this instrument, let's talk about the hourglass-shaped instrument, has a very large pitch range, whereby you can get a very low sound and up to the very high sound, and all other sounds in between, all other pitches, I should say, in between. And because of the nature of this large interval of pitches, the hourglass-shaped drum being used as a talking drum can actually send out specific messages than other kind of instrument being used as a talking drum. So on one hand, we have instruments that are called talking drum that can actually use the tonal contour of the language to send out specific messages. Then on the other range of the spectrum are instruments that, yes, are used to communicate, but may not necessarily send out specific messages because they are tonal contour and tonal range, pitch range is not as wide as the hourglass shape. So the use of the term talking drum has to be defined in a way that people will know that yes, there are some set of instruments that can really talk by way of making absolute sentences that the speaker of the language, the person who speaks that language and who knows the tradition and the context in which that instrument is used, will understand the sentence. Then on the other hand, there is the other drum, set of drums, that when it's played, yes, people know that, okay, the drum is saying that, gather at the chief's palace. For what? The drum cannot actually elaborate the reason why you are to gather.
The hourglass drum can't do that?
Yes, the hourglass can do that, can go beyond that.
Oh, okay.
If the good hourglass drummer takes the hourglass drum and understand the language and the context in which the hourglass is used, yes, can say, gather at the chief's palace for this specific event. Yes. So that's what. And in between these two ends, there are other instrument that plays more or less talking roles. Okay, but one important thing is the language. The language is important because whatever the instrumentalists play or whatever the instrument plays is based on the contour, the language contour. That is the tonal contour of the language, so that both the musician has to clearly understand not only the language, be able to speak it, but understand the proverbs and the deeper meanings of words and sentences and how they fit into context. Because many of African languages, particularly West African languages, come in 3 tones. Some have more than that. When I say they come in 3 tones, those are the 3 tonal contours that are mostly used in our everyday language.
Can you give some examples?
Okay, so like in Ewe language, we have 5 tones actually. That's what the linguists identify. But it's only 3, the low, the mid, and the high, that is actually used commonly. I think the same thing can be said about Yoruba, or even more. But the drummer has to know how to combine a low and a mid to get an additional tonality, to be able to, like the gliding sounds and all of those things, which may be necessary to be able to give a complete sentence on the instrument for somebody else to identify. But as you know, that using the 3 tones can be misleading out of context. So that some of our words in some of our languages, one word may have 7 meanings, or one syllable may have 7 meanings. But as to which of those meanings the speaker intends to put across depends on the context and then the subject about which the language is being used.
I wish you would give us some of the words. Or,
okay, so I can give that from my language, Ewe language. Like the word to, T-O. T-O. When you pronounce it, T-O can have about 7 meanings. It can have to, ear. To, the same pitch tonality, mountain. To, the same pitch tonality means father-in-law. To, the same pitch tonality means to pound something. So, to alone gives you 4 meanings there. Then, to, low, will mean thick. As to liquid, the liquid being very thick. Or to, the same tonality, low, means a buffalo, the animal buffalo. Then to, which is mid-range, mid-pitch, to means mortar, a mortar in which we pound something. So all of these gives us about 7 or 8 meanings of the same word to. So when a drummer wants to use that word, the message he or she sends out, most is usually a he sent out, the decoding of that message would depend on one, the drummer using that word in addition to other words in the sentence in the appropriate way, so that the decoder will also have to be aware of the context to be able to decode what the message is. For example, when I say in Hebrew, I'm going onto the mountain. I'm going onto the mountain. Mayina tolaji. Mayina tolaji. To. That means I'm going onto the mountain. To, mountain, not ear, which is also to. So clearly, the context will tell the decoder that I mean mountain and not ear. I'm not going onto my ear. But if you don't understand that within the context, then you can interpret it to be, oh, this guy is going onto his ears. So that's one example. And various examples can be given for various words in different languages. So the drummer has to know all of this. In addition to that, many of the talking drums operate with proverbs and maxims and adages, all of these. So some decoders will have to be aware that certain proverbs work in certain contexts. And if the drummer is able to play those proverbs within the context, then the meaning, the broader meaning of the message becomes very clear. Let me give you an example. If a drummer wants to praise a king that is walking into a public arena, there are certain sets of proverbs and adages that drummer has to know to include, whether the drummer is talking about the chiefs or the king's father's bravery, or is talking about the king's own bravery acts, and whether or not individuals at the public arena need to carry themselves in one way or the other. It all depends on using the proverb in its right context. So that also aids decoding, aids understanding.
You haven't given examples of words that have different tones.
Okay.
I wish you can do so.
Of course.
As well.
It's the same words having different tones and
Yes.
used in different contexts.
Yes.
For example, using the word to again, to. So I gave the example of to, the high tone. Now, to. When I say I killed, let me give you a classic example. So this king is so brave that he was able to kill the buffalo with his hands. Okay? The king that is as brave to be able to kill the buffalo with his bare hands. Okay? That is an expression which is talking about the bravery of the king. The king might not have actually done that practically. So I'll say that killed the buffalo with his hands. To. But in playing that on the drum, if I'm a musician and want to play that on the drum, that to has to be low tone and low bass for it to give some kind of clue to the decoder. Because when I play that with a high tone, I might be saying that the brave king that killed the ear with the hands, or that kill the mountain with the hand. So by just changing the tonality there from high to low gives a clue for different interpretation and different meaning.
Wow, this is quite exciting. I wonder why we don't have physics departments, you know, because physics, sound is about physics.
Yeah.
And of course, it's also about language and so on. We should have scholars, you know, focusing on this phenomena, this excellent situation. Drums that talk.
Well, I mean, people's research, people are doing it, but it's very difficult to find one research that focuses solely on things like this. But also, the complexity comes in a way that to be able to do this, you have to be very, very good with the language, not only the practical way of playing the drum. You have to know the language in and out in the context in which it's used. So yes, musicians have talked about, described the instrument, the playing techniques, but it's very difficult to find a musician who has consummate knowledge about the musical aspect, and then the linguistic aspect, and then the cultural aspect, to be able to put all this together. And then in addition to that, the scientific aspect. Yeah.
So in that case, you would say that most African languages can facilitate can basically be utilized to communicate sound in the same way.
Yes, every instrument can be used, but not all instruments can be used in the same way. Two, instruments are ethnically based, for that matter, language based in terms of their use. It may be difficult to pick an instrument from one ethnic group to use that to talk or to communicate in another language, in another ethnic group, in a different context. No matter how good player you are, if you know the language, it's one puzzle solved. The decoder has to be sure that you know the context to be able to use it in that way. In the first place, just the physical shape of the instrument, the physical shape, then the sonic aspect, the sound quality that the instrument emits are very important for decoding. So when I use a tumpan, the twin drums that as referred to as talking drum among the Ewe, the Akans and other ethnic groups in West Africa, to talk in Twi or in Ewe, it's not just me using the languages of those ethnic groups, but those drums are already known to be functioning in those ways already. So if I pick that same drum and I go to the Hausa people in Nigeria, although they also have talking drums by way of their hourglass drum, and then no matter how well I can speak Hausa, no matter how much I understand Hausa culture, how the language functions, the socio-linguistic aspect of the language, no matter how well I am vested in, the fact that I'm using these twin drums from Ghana to say the same thing that would have been played on the talking drum for them to decode, the fact that I'm using different set of sound, it will be much more difficult for Hausa people to actually decode what I'm saying.
So you're basically saying too that the drums that have been invented and created are language specific, are they?
Not their invention, but their function are language specific. Their invention are ethnic specific. but truly you can find the shape of one drum, same shape in another ethnic group. But the way that same shaped drum is used in one ethnic group might not be exactly the same way that it's used in the other ethnic group. And that's also very important for decoding.
I want to thank you for taking the time to illuminate this very fascinating aspect of African music, African communication system.
Yes, African communication system.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.